Una Park stood in the center of the great hall. The ceiling rose so high above her that she could not see where it ended. Strange lights floated in the air like small stars. Around her sat hundreds of alien beings from across the galaxy. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some looked like nothing she had ever seen before. All of them watched her with cold eyes. She was the first human to stand in the Galactic Council chamber. Earth had sent her here with hope. They had sent her with dreams of friendship and trade. They had sent her believing that the galaxy would welcome them. They were wrong. Hi. Arbiter Vorel sat on a throne made of black metal. His skin was gray and smooth like stone. His eyes were completely white with no pupils. He was the most powerful being in the known galaxy. When he spoke, entire civilizations listened. Today, he looked at Una like she was an insect. "You come before this council," Vorel said, his voice echoing through the chamber, asking for equal standing. "You asked to trade with us. You asked to be treated as our equals." The silence was heavy and uncomfortable. "Your species has been traveling between stars for only 60 years. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are weak. Your people number in the billions. We number in the trillions." Vorel leaned forward on his throne. A cruel smile appeared on his face. "And yet you come here asking to be our equals?" The chamber exploded with laughter. Hundreds of alien voices mocked her. They pointed at her. They made sounds of disgust. Una felt her face grow hot, but she kept her expression calm. She had trained for this. She had prepared for rejection, but she had not prepared for what came next. Grand Speaker Mira Vorel said, turning to another alien beside him. "What do we do with species who do not know their place?" Myra was tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 arms. She smiled in a way that made Una's blood turn cold. "We teach them, High Arbiter. We teach them so well that they never forget." Vorel nodded. He raised one gray hand and pointed at Una. "Human, you will kneel before this council. You will press your face to the floor. You will beg us for the honor of serving the greater civilizations. This is the proper place for your kind." Una felt her heart beating fast in her chest. She could hear the blood rushing in her ears. Every alien in the chamber was watching her, waiting, expecting her to break. She thought of Earth. She thought of her mother and father. She thought of the children who had waved at her when she left for this mission. She thought of everything humanity had worked for. "Oh," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I will not kneel." The laughter stopped. The chamber became very still. Vorel's white eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "I said no." Una stood straighter. "I am the representative of Earth. I speak for 8 billion human beings. We kneel to no one." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Vorel made a small gesture with his hand. 4 guards appeared from the shadows. They were massive creatures with armor built into their bodies. They moved toward Una with heavy steps that shook the floor. She did not run. She did not scream. She stood her ground even as the first guard grabbed her arm and twisted it behind her back. She stayed silent when they forced her to her knees. She did not cry out when they struck her face, but when they brought out the branding iron, she could not stop herself from screaming. The mark of the lesser was burned into her left cheek. It was a symbol that meant slave. It meant property. It meant less than nothing. The pain was beyond anything she had ever felt. The smell of her own burning flesh filled her nose. Through the pain, she heard Vorel speaking. "Let this be broadcast across every world. Let every species see what happens to those who challenge the natural order. Humanity is nothing. Humanity will always be nothing." When it was over, the guards threw her to the floor. Her diplomatic insignia was torn from her uniform. Her credentials were destroyed. She lay there bleeding and burned, while the council watched and laughed. They let her leave after that. They put her on a small transport ship and sent her back toward Earth. They thought they had broken her. They thought they had broken humanity. They were wrong. 12 hours later, the broadcast reached Earth. Admiral Han Taewoo watched it in the main command center of Fleet Headquarters. His face showed no emotion as he saw Una beaten. His hands did not shake when they burned her face. But those who knew him well could see something terrible growing in his eyes. General Nari Kim stood beside him. She was a small woman with gray hair and a scar across her neck. She had fought in 3 wars and had never lost. When the broadcast ended, she looked at the Admiral and waited. Director Q Beak was also there. He was in charge of Earth's strategic defense. He was the one who knew all of humanity's secrets. All of them. They think we are weak, Admiral Han said slowly. They think we are children playing with toys we do not understand. He turned to face his colleagues. His eyes were hard like iron. They have made the greatest mistake in the history of this galaxy. Admiral Han walked to a special console in the corner of the room. It required 3 keys to open. He had one. General Kim had another. Director Beak had the third. Together they inserted their keys and turned them at the same time. A red screen appeared. It asked for a voice command. Admiral Han leaned close to the microphone. When he spoke, his voice was calm and cold. Activate Extermination Protocol. The screen flashed green. Across Earth and beyond, in places the galaxy did not know existed, machines began to wake up. Ships that had waited in darkness for centuries powered on. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for this moment received their orders. The galaxy had just made an enemy of humanity, and humanity was not what they thought. The galaxy believed a lie. They believed that humanity had discovered space travel 60 years ago. They believed that humans were simple creatures who had barely learned to leave their own planet. They believed that Earth had only 12 colony ships and a small Levano defense fleet. Every single thing they believed was wrong. The truth began 300 years ago. In a small laboratory in Korea, a young scientist named Park Jin-ho made a discovery that changed everything. He found a way to fold space. He found a way to travel between stars in seconds instead of years. He found the key to the galaxy. But Park Jin-ho was a careful man. He looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. He wondered if the universe was kind or cruel. He decided that humanity should not rush into the darkness without being ready, so he kept his discovery secret. He shared it only with people he trusted completely. Together, they made a plan. They would explore the galaxy in silence. They would learn about the other species. They would prepare for whatever they might find, and they would never reveal themselves until they were ready. For 300 years, humanity lived 2 lives. On the surface, they pretended to be slow and primitive. They built simple ships that used old technology. They sent clumsy probes into nearby space. They acted like curious children taking their first steps, but in secret, they built an empire. Dr. Yoon So-min knew the truth better than anyone. She was the current leader of Project Genesis, the secret program that protected humanity's future. She had spent 40 years preparing for the moment when the mask would finally come off. Her office was not on Earth. It was on a hidden world called New Busan, in a star system that no alien map had ever recorded. Through her window, she could see shipyards that stretched across the entire planet. Thousands of warships hung in orbit, their hulls painted black to hide in the darkness of space. When the message came that the extermination protocol had been activated, she felt no surprise, only sadness. I hoped this day would never come, she said to her assistant, a young man named De Junesio. I hoped they would be better than this. Junesio looked at the data on his screen. They beat Ambassador Park. They branded her face. They laughed while they did it, I know. So-min closed her eyes for a moment. And now, they will learn what happens when you hurt humanity. She pressed a button on her desk. Instantly, her image appeared on screens across 7 hidden star systems. 200 million people looked up at her face. Soldiers, engineers, scientists, farmers, all of them human. All of them ready. My fellow humans, she said. The time has come. For 3 centuries we have waited. We have watched. We have prepared. Today, our patience ends. Today, the galaxy learns the truth about humanity. She paused to let her words sink in. The Galactic Council believes we are weak. They believe we have 12 ships and no power. They believe they can hurt us without consequence. Her voice grew harder. They are wrong. We have 7 colony worlds. We have 12,000 battle fleets. We have weapons they cannot imagine. And we have something more powerful than all of that. We have each other. Across the hidden colonies, people stood and listened. Mothers held their children. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Engineers powered up machines that had waited decades for this moment. The extermination protocol is not about revenge, Salman continued. It is about survival. It is about making sure that no species ever thinks they can harm humanity without consequence. We did not want this war, but we will finish it. On the planet below her station, Fleet Marshal De Sunjo was already giving orders. He was an old man with white hair and steady hands. He had trained for this his entire life, as his father had before him. And his grandfather before that. 2 million warships began to move. Their engines made no sound in the vacuum of space, but if they could be heard, the noise would have shaken planets. These were not the slow, clumsy ships the galaxy had seen. These were predators. Fast, silent, and deadly. Another 5 million ships remained in reserve. Just in case, Sung-Ho looked at the star maps that showed Council territory. 47 targets had been selected. Every major military base, every fleet headquarters, every center of power. They would all be hit at exactly the same time. Send the final positioning orders, he said to his officers. All fleets are to achieve attack readiness within 6 hours. Yes, Fleet Marshal. The ships began to disappear into fold space, jumping across impossible distances in the blink of an eye. They emerged in the dark spaces between stars, hiding in the shadows where no one would think to look. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Han Tae-woo was preparing the public announcement. Soon the people of Earth would learn the truth about their own history. They would learn that their government had kept secrets for 300 years. Some would be angry. Some would be afraid. But Han believed that most would understand. Humanity had always been good at surviving. And sometimes survival required secrets. General Nari Kim was reviewing the ground assault plans. When the space battle was over, soldiers would need to land on enemy worlds. They would need to capture leaders and destroy military bases. They would need to show the galaxy that humanity could not be stopped. Her soldiers were ready. They had trained in secret facilities on hidden moons. They wore armor that could stop any weapon the Council had ever made. They carried guns that could punch through starship hulls. The galaxy had never seen anything like them, and very soon they would. Director Kubik was activating the sleeper agents. For decades, humanity had been placing spies in every major civilization. Some were human. Some were machines so advanced they could not be detected. They had been waiting patiently for orders. Now those orders came. Across the galaxy, the agents began their work. They sabotaged defense systems. They opened secret doors. They sent back information about every weakness, every blind spot. Every mistake, the Galactic Council had no idea what was coming. They were about to find out in exactly 6 hours. The first human warship would appear above. Keth Prime. It would be the beginning of the end. The galaxy had woken a sleeping giant, and that giant was very, very angry. The attack began at exactly 0400 Galactic Standard Time, across 47 star systems. Human warships appeared from nowhere. One moment, the sky was empty. The next moment, it was filled with death. Commander Jin Hanna led the assault on Keth Prime. Her fleet emerged from fold space inside the planet's orbital defense grid. This was supposed to be impossible. Every scientist in the galaxy said that ships could not jump so precisely. They said the mathematics would not allow it. They were wrong. Hannah stood on the bridge of her flagship, Soul's Revenge. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes. She had never lost a battle. She did not plan to start today. All weapons systems ready, her weapons officer reported. Defense platforms are targeting us, said another officer. They are very confused. Hannah smiled slightly. They expected us to come from outside. They built all their defenses pointing outward. No one attacks from within. She gave the order. Open fire. 200 human warships fired at once. Their weapons were not like anything the Keth had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or missiles, the human ships used gravitational weapons. They created tiny black holes that lasted for only a fraction of a second. But that fraction of a second was enough. The Keth orbital stations simply disappeared. One moment they were there. The next moment, they were crushed into points smaller than atoms. There was no explosion. There was no warning. They were just gone. The Keth Defense Fleet tried to respond. They had 3,000 ships protecting their homeworld. They were proud of their military. They believed they were the strongest species in the galaxy. They learned the truth in the first. 15 minutes, human ships moved faster than anything the Keth could track. Their shields absorbed every weapon the Keth fired. Their counterattacks were precise and devastating. Ship after ship vanished in flashes of distorted light. Enemy fleet reduced by 40%, the tactical officer reported. Then, moments later, 60%, 70, 90. Within 1 hour, the Keth fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single human ship had been seriously damaged. Hannah turned her attention to the planet below. Locate High Arbiter Varel. He is our primary target. Already found him, Commander. He is in his palace in the capital city. Send in the ground teams. Salt pods dropped from the human ships like rain. Each pod carried 10 soldiers in powered armor. The armor made them stronger, faster, and nearly impossible to kill. The Keth ground defenses tried to shoot down the pods. But human technology was simply too advanced. The soldiers landed around Voral's palace. They moved through the building like ghosts, clearing room after room with terrible efficiency. Keth guards fired their weapons and watched in horror as the shots bounced off human armor. Then the humans fired back, and the guards fell. Within 30 minutes, the palace was taken. Commander Jin Hannah transported down to see the result herself. She walked through halls filled with fallen Keth soldiers. She stepped over broken weapons and shattered doors. Finally, she reached the throne room. Voral was there, held by 2 human soldiers. His gray face was twisted with rage and fear. His white eyes were wide. "This is impossible," he said. "Your species is nothing. You are primitives. You cannot do this." Hannah walked slowly toward him. She carried something in her hand. It was a branding iron, identical to the one that had been used on Ambassador Yuna Park. "Kneel," she said. Voral stared at her. "What?" I said, "Kneel." Her voice was ice. "This is what you wanted, is it not? For others to kneel before you? For others to know their place?" The soldiers forced Voral to his knees. He struggled, but he could not break free. The humans were too strong. Hannah heated the branding iron. It began to glow red. "Ambassador Park came to you with open hands. She came with peace, and you heard her. You marked her. You laughed while she screamed." Hannah's eyes were hard as stone. "Now you will understand how it feels." She pressed the iron to Voral's face. His screams echoed through the empty palace. When she pulled it away, the mark of the lesser was burned into his gray skin. "Humanity does not kneel," Hannah said. "Remember that. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were happening everywhere. The Syndicate Collective's Grand Fleet met human forces near their largest moon. Grand Speaker Myra had gathered 10,000 warships, the greatest military force her species had ever assembled. She was confident of victory. The battle lasted 20 minutes. Human ships used a weapon that turned enemy shields into bombs. The technology was based on something humanity had found in a crashed alien vessel 2 centuries ago. They had studied it, improved it, and made it their own. Myra's fleet destroyed itself. Their own shields overloaded and exploded. Ship after ship vanished in balls of fire. Mira herself survived only because her flagship's shield failed. Instead of exploding, she was captured and brought before the human Admiral Han Taewoo.
Ow.
She asked, her voice broken. "How did you do this?" Admiral Han looked at her without pity. "You saw what you wanted to see. Weak humans. Primitive technology. Easy victims." He shook his head slowly. You never asked why a species smart enough to reach the stars would be so helpless? You never wondered if there might be something more? He turned away from her. Take her to the holding cells. She will face justice like the others. Captain Wu Haiyanbin led the ground assault on the Council's administrative moon. His soldiers captured the main government building in 4 hours. They secured data centers containing secrets the Council had kept for thousands of years. They found evidence of other species the Council had destroyed. Entire civilizations, wiped out simply because they refused to kneel. Humanity would make sure that never happened again. Within 72 hours, the war was effectively over. The Galactic Council's military power was completely destroyed. Their leaders were captured. Their secrets were exposed. The galaxy belonged to humanity now. The only question was what they would do with it. Ambassador Una Park returned to the council chamber 1 month after her humiliation. The burn on her cheek had healed into a permanent scar. The doctors had offered to remove it. She had refused. The chamber looked different now. The floating lights still drifted near the high ceiling, but the seats that had once held laughing aliens were empty. Soldiers in human armor stood guard at every door. The great throne of the High Arbiter sat empty and waiting. Una walked slowly to that throne. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. When she reached it, she did not sit down immediately. She ran her fingers across the cold black metal. She thought about everything that had happened in this room. The laughter. The pain. The moment when they had burned her face, while hundreds watched and did nothing. Then she sat down. "Bring them in," she said. The doors opened. Soldiers marched in, escorting prisoners in chains. Vorel was first, his gray face still marked with the brand that Commander Jin had given him. Mira came after her, 4 arms bound tightly to her sides. Behind them came 36 other council members. Every species that had voted to humiliate humanity was represented. They were forced to kneel on the same floor where Una had been beaten. Admiral Basante Wu entered the chamber next. He stood at Yuna's right side. His uniform was perfect. His face showed no emotion. He carried a datapad with the final reports from the war. General Nari Kim took position at Yuna's left. Her gray hair was tied back, and her eyes were sharp. She had personally overseen the capture of 12 council leaders. Not one of them had escaped. Ambassador Park, Admiral Han said formally. The military campaign is complete. All primary targets have been neutralized. Enemy casualties are approximately 1.2 billion combatants and 400 million civilians. Una closed her eyes for a moment. So many dead. She had known this would happen when the protocol was activated. She had accepted it. But the numbers still hurt to hear. Our casualties. She asked, 847 soldiers killed, 2,000 wounded. All wounded are expected to recover. The difference was staggering. Billions against hundreds. The galaxy had believed humanity was weak, and that belief had cost them everything. The remaining council fleets have surrendered, General Kim added. Their ground forces have laid down weapons. We have complete military control over all 47 target systems. Una opened her eyes and looked at the prisoners kneeling before her. They looked broken, defeated. Some of them were trembling with fear. Others stared at the floor, unable to meet her gaze. Vorel was the only one who looked up. Even now, even in chains, there was still pride in his white eyes. Maybe it was courage. Maybe it was stupidity. Una was not sure which. Of one, Vorel said. His voice was rough, damaged from screaming. So finish it. Execute us. Take our worlds. Become what you always wanted to be. And what is that? Una asked quietly. Conquerors, tyrants, masters. Vorel laughed bitterly. You pretended to be peaceful, but this is your true nature. This is what humanity really is. Predators wearing the masks of prey. The chamber was very quiet. Everyone waited to see how Una would respond. She stood up from the throne and walked down the steps toward Vorel. She moved slowly, her footsteps echoing. When she reached him, she looked down at his kneeling form. You're right about one thing, she said. We could become what you fear. We have the power. No one in this galaxy can stop us now. We could put human governors on every world. We could demand tribute from every species. We could build an empire greater than anything you ever imagined." She paused. Voral watched her with suspicious eyes. "But that is not who humanity chooses to be." Voral's expression changed. Confusion replaced suspicion. "What?" Una reached down and lifted his chin, forcing him to look directly at her scarred face. "You hurt me. You laughed at my pain. You thought you could break my spirit with violence and shame." She let go of his chin. "But I am still here, and I am still human. I do not need to become a monster to defeat monsters." She turned and walked back to the throne, but she did not sit down again. Instead, she faced the prisoners. "You will face justice," she said. "Each of you will be tried for your crimes. Those who ordered violence against peaceful species will be punished. But the punishment will be fair. There will be evidence. There will be defense. There will be truth." Admiral Han stepped forward. "Ambassador, there are those who believe we should show no mercy. They remember what was done to you. They remember the centuries of contempt and mockery." "I know," Una said. "I understand their anger. I feel it too." She touched her scarred cheek. "But anger is not wisdom. Revenge is not justice. If we become what they were, then everything we have built means nothing." She looked at each prisoner in turn. Some of them were crying. Others looked confused. A few seemed almost hopeful. "The old council is finished," Una announced. "In its place, we will build something new. A federation where every species has equal standing, where no one is forced to kneel, where strength is used to protect, not to oppress." General Kim looked surprised. "You would share power with species that tried to destroy us?" "They did not all try to destroy us," Una said. "Many of them simply followed their leaders. They believed what they were told. They were wrong, but they can learn to be better." She smiled slightly. "Humanity learned. We can teach others." She finally sat back down on the throne. It felt strange. It felt heavy. But she accepted the weight. "We could rule through fear," she said. "But fear breeds hatred, and hatred breeds rebellion. I do not want our children to fight the same wars we have fought. I want peace. Real peace. And that begins with mercy." Boral stared at her. His eyes were different now. The pride was gone. In its place was something Una had never expected to see. "Respect. You are not what I thought," he said quietly. "Perhaps humanity deserved a chance after all." "Everyone deserves a chance," Una replied. "Even you." She turned to Admiral Han. "Begin preparations for the peace conference. It is time to build the future." 6 months passed. The galaxy slowly began to heal. The Treaty of New Sol was signed on a space station above Earth. Representatives from every species in the galaxy were present. Some came willingly, eager to be part of something new. Others came reluctantly, still afraid of what humanity might do. But they all came. The treaty dissolved the old Galactic Council forever. In its place, a new federation was born. Every species, no matter how old or how young, would have an equal voice. No one would be called lesser. No one would be forced to kneel. Ambassador Una Park was elected as the first chancellor of the Federation. She had not wanted the position. She had asked others to lead, but species after species voted for her. Even some who had once mocked her now spoke her name with respect. On the day of her inauguration, Una stood on a platform overlooking a crowd of thousands. Humans, Keth, syndicate members, and dozens of other species all stood together. For the first time in galactic history, they stood as equals. Dr. Yoon Salman watched from the front row. She had come out of the shadows at last. The hidden colonies were secret no more. 7 new worlds had joined the Federation, bringing with them technology and knowledge that would benefit everyone. Fleet. Marshal de Sunjo stood nearby with his officers. The great fleets that had destroyed the Council's military were now at peace. Some ships had been converted to transport vessels and medical ships. Others remained as warriors, silent guardians watching over the new order. Commander Jin Hanna was there too. She wore a formal uniform instead of battle armor. The woman who had conquered Keth Prime now worked as a diplomatic liaison. Helping former enemies learn to trust each other, Captain Wu Hyanbin stood with his soldiers. They had traded their weapons for tools. They were helping rebuild cities that had been damaged in the war. Former warriors had become builders. Admiral Han Tae-woo and General Nari Kim flanked the stage. They had both offered to resign after the war. Yuna had refused their resignations. She needed them. The galaxy needed them. Strength was still important, even in times of peace. When Yuna stepped forward to speak, the crowd fell silent. 1 billion beings across 1,000 worlds watched through broadcast screens. This moment would be remembered forever. 6 months ago, Yuna began, I stood in a great hall and asked for friendship. I asked for trade. I asked to be treated with respect. In return, I was beaten. I was branded. I was told that my people were nothing. She touched the scar on her cheek. She had never hidden it. She never would. Today, I stand before you as the Chancellor of a new federation. Not because humanity conquered you, not because we forced you to accept us, but because we earned your trust through actions, not words. She looked out at the mixed crowd. Humans stood beside Keth. Syndicate members spoke with species they had once considered beneath them. Old hatreds were slowly fading. We came to you with open hands, Yuna continued. You chose violence. We answered with fire. But today we offer you something your old order never understood. She paused. The silence was complete. A second chance. In the back of the crowd, former High Arbiter Vorel listened. His trial had been fair, as Yuna had promised. He had been found guilty of crimes against peaceful species. His punishment was exile to a small colony world, where he would live out his remaining years in comfort, but without power. He could have been executed. Many had demanded it. But Yuna had argued for mercy, and the new Federation had listened. Vorel touched the brand on his face. It matched the scar on Yuna's cheek. They were connected now, he and this human woman. Connected by pain and by something stranger. Something like understanding. Humanity does not forget, Yuna said. We remember every insult, every injury, every species that tried to crush us. We remember it all. Her voice grew softer, but somehow more powerful. But we can forgive. If you prove worthy of it, if you stand with us instead of against us, if you build instead of destroy, if you treat others the way you wish to be treated. She spread her hands wide, a gesture of welcome. This federation is not a human empire. It is a home for everyone, a place where the strong protect the weak, where the old teach the young, where different species work together toward a future none of us could build alone. The applause started slowly and then grew into a roar. Thousands of voices from dozens of species cheered together. For the first time in galactic history, there was true unity. After the ceremony, Yuna walked through the station alone. She needed a moment of quiet. A moment to think. She found Admiral Han Tae-woo standing by a large window. He was looking out at the stars. Behind him, invisible in the darkness of space, the greatest fleet ever assembled waited in silence. They are still out there, Yuna said, standing beside him. Our ships, our weapons. They will always be out there, Han replied. We sealed the Extermination protocol, but we did not destroy it. If the galaxy ever forgets this lesson, we will be ready to teach it again, Yuna nodded. I hope that day never comes. So do I, Chancellor. So do I. They stood together, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, human colony ships were already exploring beyond the old council's borders. They were finding new worlds, new wonders, new species to meet. Humanity had won. They had proven themselves stronger than anyone imagined. They could have ruled through fear and force. They could have become tyrants. Instead, they chose mercy. They chose to build something better. They chose to be the leaders they had wished the old council had been. The galaxy would never forget the war. They would never forget the terrible power humanity had revealed. But they would also remember what happened after. They would remember that when humanity won, they offered peace instead of slavery, freedom instead of domination, hope instead of fear. That was humanity's true strength, not their weapons or their fleets, but their ability to choose mercy when revenge would have been easier. The galaxy was changed forever. And for the first time in 10,000 years, it was changing for the better.